Hey Vasu, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hello everyone, welcome. Let's give few more seconds to let people join, then we will get started. You can see people joining, few more seconds. All right, let's get started. Hey Vasu, good morning and welcome to today's webinar.
Hey, good morning.
Uh, Thanks Vasu. Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on migrating Power BI Premium to Microsoft Fabric capacity. My name is Noor Basha, Senior Director of Marketing at Winwire, and I'll be moderator for today's session. As I mentioned, what we are going to discuss today is migrating Power BI Premium SKUs to Microsoft Fabric capacity. So in the next 20 to 25 minutes, followed with a few questions, we will basically discuss on different options that is available for migrating these premium Power BI Premium SKU to Fabric. Before that, let me highlight few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we will try to answer them as many as we can at the end. And we are recording this session and we'll be sharing the recording as well as the slides in the next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let me introduce you to today's session speaker, Srinivasulu. We call him Vasu. He's a principal architect in our data and AI practice team, and he works with our enterprise clients in the data analytics and AI stream. With that, I will let Vasu take over the sessions. Vasu, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Noor. Thanks everyone for joining. Good morning, good evening, whichever part of the world. I really appreciate in terms of joining this particular webinar. So today, we'll be discussing more in terms of, the migrating our premium capacities, to the Fabric capacities and how exactly we should be doing it and what is the process and, what are the prerequisites and, how you should be handling your activities or plan your activities, right, whenever this kind of a situation arrives. And anyway, in a few days everyone have to process or migrate these P-SKUs into the F-SKUs because Microsoft already stopped it. Now let me go into the presentation. I hope everybody able to see my screen. So this is my this me I'm the principal data architect in Winwire, as we mentioned. I work with enterprise customers, in terms of solving, migrating, their business problems and into the modern data platform architectures, and pretty much in working in the data and analytics side of it for almost like 2 decades now. And from in Power BI, I've been working very closely, from past a decade and actively working with many of the Microsoft partners and Microsoft architect teams to make sure that we are at most delivering the quality of the products to the enterprise customers, right? So now, as part of this today's discussion in the webinar, so we will be focusing how we would be looking at migrating the Power BI to the migrating Fabric workspaces, and especially we're talking about the P-SKUs and the F-SKUs, and what are all the migration options we have, and what are the migration processes we have, and and finally we will pick up the Q&A part, right? Now, first of all, why do we have to migrate from premium SKU to the Fabric SKU, right? So As everyone would have noticed last year, Microsoft clearly said that yeah, there is a fabric that is came into the picture, and I hope everyone knows about the fabric. But we will touch base on a high level soon. So when it comes to the fabric perspective, the entire underlying architecture or the underlying engine between the premium SKUs and the fabric SKUs are completely same, especially in terms of the data reading and writing perspective, and the storage engine and the formula engine within the our Power BI engines perspective, right? Now, as the engines are completely same, and Fabric is one, a new engine that actually came into the Microsoft, where it came up with some kind of a one lake architecture, and the additional capabilities also came into the picture. And Microsoft wanted to build some unified platform. Fabric came in, as part of our offerings, and then finally they wanted to stabilize this entire licensing platform or the capacity platforms for the P-SKUs and the F-SKUs going forward. And that is the reason this migration effect comes into the picture, right? Now, what is actually the current situation, right? As part of the migration of it. So why do we need to migrate, and when do we need to migrate, and what are the the prerequisites, or what are the the ifs and buts, which we have to consider it, right? So Microsoft, clearly saying, that okay, whatever the new customers, who are completely onboarded into the platform, let's say, last year. So Microsoft is not even recommending, for them to go and purchase the P-SKUs. When we say the P-SKUs or the premium SKUs, where we used to actually, purchase it for, per annum basis, and which is an upfront cost to the customer, and that is how, everybody will be, purchasing it. Now, when it comes to the costing perspective, we have a P1 capacity or the P2, P3, and P4. That is how the names would be off, and the P1, it actually starts around like grand a month, and you have to pay upfront of 60K on an annual basis, to make sure that it is dedicated capacity for you, right? Now, if it is a P2 capacity, then it's around 10 grand a month, like that. You actually take your capacity based on your data volumes and the usage perspective. Now, Microsoft is not recommending the premium, Power BI premium capacity, for the new customers. And now everybody should be on the Fabric. That's the reason new customers are already getting onboarded into the Fabric itself, which we have seen it as part of the trend in, when we are signing up the new contracts on the analytics. Yes, we have seen that everything will be part of the Fabric capacities only. Now, the existing customers, how exactly, they should be planning for it, right? So February 1st, 2025 is what, the renewal, everything has been stopped, so the premium capacities will not be renewed. And we are having, some kind of a grace period in terms of how we should be, converting from the premium capacity to the Fabric capacity. So that is where the existing customers would be, looking at it. And now within the existing customers itself, there are two categories. One is with the enterprise agreement, and one is, without the enterprise agreement. So pretty much most of the tenant admins are the funders of, the enterprise platform engineers. They would be knowing about these enterprise agreements to make sure that how and when they would be doing it. And Microsoft will also be sending some newsletters to every customers to make sure that, hey, you're coming to an end, you go for the migration as soon as possible, plan for it, and indeed look for the migration into the Fabric scheme, right? Now, as we understand, why we have to do the Fabric migration. So let's go in detail about what is Fabric, right? Just on a high level perspective, I want to touch base on it. So even though I don't have a a typical slide on it, but I just want to touch base on that particular Fabric. Now, Fabric, as part of the workspace or as part of the capacity, or as part of the analytics part of it, everywhere, we have been looking at Power BI as part of the analytics. Now, the moment Fabric comes into the picture, it's basically an unified platform, which is given, to the enterprise customers, where the data engineering, data analytics, and then the data science, all three, platforms can be clubbed together to make sure, you have, the, implementations, right, on the Fabric. Now, when it comes to the data engineering, the way we used to have our Azure, SQL dedicated SQL pools, or the serverless SQL pools, querying your, the underlying ADLS Gen 2, everything will be, available within it. But we actually call it as instead of ADLS Gen 2, we typically start calling it as a one lake architecture. And in this one lake architecture, you have a storage layer, and then all the engines, like the way we talk about the engines like the Spark engine, or the data factories, like the pipelines, and data science activities, even the data warehouse and Power BI, everything will be connecting to the one lake architecture or the storage layer. And that is how when you get to see the Fabric as a full process, or the architecture platform, right? Now, in this, now the Fabric comes with a lot of functionalities. Now it's your responsibility, or it's your enterprise responsibility to make sure that which particular functionality you would be using it further. As part of it, right? So let's say my focus is more towards on the data analytics side of it. Yeah, indeed, why not? You have a Power BI, you have the reports workspaces. Start publishing the reports. Now your databases, your data engineering can be anything, right? But as part of a recommendation which we say it to all the customers, put across everything as part of the Fabric, and which is a unified platform, because everything is within the one nutshell. And that particular shell itself is pretty much connected. And the network, and the querying performance is at most very fast when compared to the other services what we have seen it, right? Where there will be a kind of a lag perspective. So now coming back to our migration, side of the premium to the Fabric SKUs, we are talking about how many types of migrations, which we can typically do it. Correct. So as far as till now, which we have explored it, it's just only like two migration options we have. One is the manual migration, and then the one is the automated side. Now, the manual migration, let's say that you have a enterprise, or you have a Power BI workspaces, let's say around 5 workspaces, or maybe around 10 workspaces, right? And where it is connecting to a P1 capacity, then you can actually go ahead with executing, or changing the each and every workspace, pointing from the P-SKU to the Fabric SKU, which an admin activity can be done, and start reassigning it. The moment you start reassigning it, then all the artifacts will be pushed to the Fabric capacity itself. And that is how the whenever the view happens on top of the report, automatically it will start utilizing the Fabric capacity. Now that's the manual approach, right? Now you can also utilize the admin portal in terms of the bulk reassignments of it, where the multiple workspaces also can be taken. But it is all just like the way the manual setup, right? Now which is anybody can do it. It's a sequence of steps. All you have to do is just go to your workspace settings, select your change your premium capacity to the Fabric capacity. Boom, it's done, right? And then automatically it will start migrating at the backend perspective. Now, in terms of the automated process, now when we say the automation, now let's look at a scenario where I have an enterprise customer with some 50 or 100 or maybe around 500 different workspaces which are related. So when I say 500 different workspaces, it can be a dev, test, or even production workspaces, or it can be a premium per user workspaces also, right? So all these comes into the picture. In that particular case, then we recommend to go ahead with the automation scripts, and that is what exactly which we would be going through. Now, in this particular automation script, we are typically migrating the multiple one or a multiple P1 capacity or P2 capacity or anything from P to the FSKU, and that is how we would be making sure that every view or every data analytics activity will be using only the FSKU than the PSKU, and PSKUs will be decommissioned right after that, right? And we recommend this as part of the large scale implementations. Now coming to the setup, so let's say this is how sorry, I'm not going to go in detail about these demos, but I've captured the screenshots, and this will give you a high level gist of it in terms of how you would be focusing on top of migrating it. Now, let's say that you have an existing environment. When I say existing environment means your primary, the premium, capacity workspaces. Take an example. I have around 50 different workspaces. As you see here, I have POC 1, 2, and 3 as part of the workspaces. These are all the basic typical workspaces. All they have is the diamond symbol. When I say the diamond symbol means it's a premium capacity that is associated to your workspace, right? Now, the diamond symbol can be of, if there is a member that is associated, then it's a premium per user. So we are, giving a screenshots, or we captured the screenshots for the premium per user or the premium, both works in the same fashion. There is no differences at all over there. Now, this is your setup. You have around 50 or maybe 100 different workspaces. The way normal, we develop the, reports, we publish our report, to the workspace where you have a semantic model and you have a report, right? And you have an apps also that will be available as part of your workspace. And indeed, there will be a scheduled refreshes also that will be taken into consideration, right? Which is like either it can be a manual or it can be an automation through your ADF, correct? So this is your current setup. Now, how do you know your licenses is about? You go to your license, info workspace settings, you would be seeing what exactly your current license and where that particular workspace is associated to, correct? That is what exactly your, the setup of it. Now, what exactly you need, to migrate it, okay? Whatever the code which we are showing it in the next 2 or 3 slides, that is exactly the code which you would be executing as part of the cells within your notebook. That would be available, or executing in your fabric capacity itself, right? So how do you have a fabric capacity? Now I know that, which means the admin settings, which I will showcase it. But on a high level, this is what exactly. So where we would be using the semantic link labs, and there is SMP labs, which is basically given by the Microsoft recommended the Git import libraries that are available. And all you have to do is, once these two are completely available, all you have to do is just feed in this information, right? This is what exactly which we should be focusing on more as part of the system, where you have to understand what is your source capacity, what's your target capacity, and what exactly you need, as part of your migration, right? Your source capacity means, this is your source capacity. That is where I'm actually giving you the premium per user reserved. You can see that, the same name, I have kept it in the, slide. And target capacity means this is my fabric capacity where you would have created as part of your Azure portal. The fabric capacity, it can be an F64 or it can be an F128 or any FSKU, right? That is what the name which you should be giving it. And as part of your workspaces, all you have to do is just give this workspace as your fabric POC1, which we have done it here. This is the workspace where we are giving it, right? Now the moment you execute this particular code, that means your fabric POC1 workspace will be migrated from premium capacity to the fabric capacity. That is what exactly this code will do. Okay. Indeed, as Noor mentioned, the core, the PPT or even the, recording will be available. You guys can take the screenshots if at all required, but this is what it is. Now, if you look at it, the biggest pain point of this is, the workspace is you are giving only one workspace as a name. Okay, how do I do a scale of around 50 or 100 or even 500, right? And that is the place where, we look at how do I go ahead with multiple workspaces. It's exactly the same code. Whatever you are seeing it here, it's exactly the same code, but you would be looking at this as part of the variable. You can see it's a list. Let's say that, hey, I have around, 50 different workspaces. I can just provide all those 50 different workspaces with a comma separated and pass it as a list to your notebook itself. Then automatically everything will be taken. Now, let's say I'm very lazy. I don't want to put across around 50 or 100 different workspaces with a comma separated, and that too in a single quotations where I have to go and get or fetch these workspace names from an API and put across something as part of a string aggregator, etc., etc. Right now, I have made a decision that, hey, whatever the workspaces, I'll just go and everything, push it to the fabric, right? Now, that is the place where you have to say it as the moment you pass on the workspace as a none, That means everything that is associated to the whatever the premium capacity workspace, everything will be pushed to your fabric capacity. Now it can be 10, it can be 20, or it can be 100 also, right? The moment you pass it on none, then that's the actual flow, I mean, where you would be saying it, hey, convert this or migrate it to the fabric, correct? This is the exact, change. You have a functionality of passing it to the one workspace, or you have a functionality to passing it to the multiple workspaces, or you have a functionality to say, hey, migrate everything, right? I don't care about the sending, giving the details of the workspace details. So I'm just migrate everything, whatever it is associated to my source capacity, just migrate to the target capacity, correct? So that's the multiple migration options which you have it. Again, you can take the screenshots, but that is how it is. Now, how do you verify it? Correct. Whether my migration is success or not. Yeah, I have executed the notebook. Everything looks good. Everything is green. But how do I migrate it? How do I make sure that I mean my migration is success or not? That is the place where I mean you would be going back to your same workspace workspaces. You're not changing anything. You would be going back from same workspaces, and just refresh your app.power BI screen, and then go to your workspace settings, and you should be seeing the license capacity, which would have came as part of your target capacity, right? Now you would have noticed that if you look at it here, I'm using the premium per user. That is the reason there is a diamond symbol with the user as an icon. Now the moment it changed it to the fabric capacity, this is a pure diamond symbol. There is no user at all. That means my it is already been migrated. Correct. So that's where exactly you would have a confirmation that yes, this particular capacity has been migrated. Okay. Now, the another thing, I mean, which you have in, the system is about, you can, as I mentioned, I mean, as part of the fabric capacity or as part of the F-SKUs, you have numerous amount of functionalities that are available. As mentioned, pipelines, data engineering, data science, data warehouse, real-time intelligence, et cetera, right? You don't want it, I mean, those, to be available, or maybe few of the customers would have even tried some kind of a trial versions. Okay. Now this is the place where you have to take a stab at it and think through this particular statement really well. When Fabric came into the market, Microsoft pushed the Fabric licenses to every Azure tenant, saying that, hey, go and try the Fabric for at least 3 or 4 months, I mean, so that you will understand it. Now, I mean, at least I have seen it, multiple customers have tried it, and, they have created their own workspaces. They have created their own, Fabric, related content in their workspaces. And, you can indeed, migrate that particular artifacts also into the system. But remember, if there are heavy workloads that are typically available, where it is pointing to the premium capacity, and you wanted to migrate it to the fabric capacity, this is where I mean we recommend it. If you have a small amount or a fabric artifacts in your environment, you have to first disable this particular Microsoft side of it, and then migrate your workspaces to accelerate the process, right? So this is the Microsoft recommendation, and we have indeed tried it, and indeed it worked. I mean, so that's the best. Now, how do you get to see your admin portal? You need to have a tenant admin, or you have to get some kind of an elevated permissions only for the specific user to get to see these kind of capacity settings. Now, capacity settings, indeed, if you are a capacity administrator, you should be able to see that as well, right? So this is the disabling and enabling of your the workspace where you have in fabric artifacts, and you want to migrate that where the fabric artifacts are sitting in the premium capacity, and you want to migrate that to the fabric capacity. This is the setup. It just only thing is no changes. It just only you have to disable this particular feature, right? Now, and once you disable, then all you have to do is enable it back. I mean, so that the business users can take the I would say take the functionalities or take advantage of the functionalities of all the other features like pipelines, data engineering, etc. Correct. Now, at least what we have seen it is wait for 15 minutes for these settings to be reflected. For maybe it might actually take a bit longer if your workspaces are pretty heavily in terms of your data set sizes, etc., or semantic models are pretty huge sizes. Then I would prefer just wait for a couple of minutes or maximum of 1 or 2 hours. It should be done. There is no predefined time that has currently seen it. It's purely depends on the executions, right? So that's all. Now the moment you have this particular functionality or this Microsoft Fabric that is being enabled, then indeed you have a ability to go and create all the notebooks, all your data factory settings, etc. Everything you can start playing around with it, right? Now, as part of the prerequisites, limitations, and challenges, I know what we have notified or noticed is existing Fabric workspace is required to create a notebook and run the code. Obviously, because you have a PySpark code, where you are actually installing, the pips, and then you are running the PySpark engine code. So obviously, you need a notebook for it. That's the reason you have that ability to execute the notebook. And fabric capacity should be created as we are using existing fabric capacity. So which means you need to make sure that first you go to your Azure portal, make sure you have a fabric capacity that is created, and then come to your app.powerbi.com, because that is how you have to select it. Your notebook is waiting for the parameter of the fabric or a variable as a fabric name. Now, what we have seen it is, the tenant admins or the elevated permission admins only should be able to execute these, because we couldn't able to execute with the lowest permissions. That's where we started going from lowest to the higher to the highest, and that is how we were able to see that, hey, tenant admin can do everything, but through the elevated permissions, yes, indeed, people can do it. Now, what are the challenges? Most of the people to identify the names, what I say, when I say names means, this license capacity name. How do I know what is my source capacity name? That is available in your workspace settings itself. It's a kind of a, it's the easy stuff, but, sometimes, it takes around challenges to identify what is the name which I should be taking it. It is not a GUID, just remember, it is not a GUID. It's a name that we have to, provide it, right? Now that's the the overall migration process. I know we are bang on time, another 3 minutes, and this particular details will be provided as Noor mentioned as part of the recording. You guys can go through it, and indeed, this particular the notebook links are also available within the system. So that's all as part of the today's webinar. Thanks a lot. Over to Noor.
Thanks, Vasu. Thanks for being on time. We got a couple of more minutes, but I have a few questions, so let me quickly jump into that. So first thing, while we are moving in this process from migrating P-SKU to Fabric SKUs, do we need to plan the downtime as well?
Oh yes, absolutely. I would prefer plan the migration. It can actually go from a day to a week or 2 weeks also, based on your number of workspaces, based on your number of reports, etc. Plan the proper downtime. So when I say downtime means make sure your schedule refreshes are completely stopped for a while, and there are no potential failures when we are running the code. And the output of the notebook also, you have to be very careful in terms of everything is being migrated or not. So that thorough sanity checks needs to be done. So yes, indeed, downtime is must.
Great. Thanks. So the next question is, do I need to migrate reports and data when I switch from P-SKUs to F-SKUs?
No, the report and data remain same. Your workspace, only the backend, the reassigning will happen. I know which Microsoft will take care of that. And that is the only thing which we should be worrying about. Reports and data remain same. We don't need to actually move your reports or data or semantic models from one workspace to another workspace. Everything remains same. It's just only backend assigning part.
Great. So one last question. So once the Fabric capacity is activated, will the existing Power BI reports and dashboards still run the same way as they did in the Power BI premium capacity?
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. I mean, so as I mentioned in the initial, part of my webinar itself, the engine is completely same. I mean, so there is nothing called, huge differences over there. It's an advanced engine. That is where I put across it, right? The Fabric SKU is an advanced engine when compared to the premium SKU. So now, whatever the functionalities or the capabilities, which we had it in our Power BI, the same thing will be available. When I say the same thing means, in our premium SKUs, we had the engine with some kind of a storage versus the formula engines. The same thing even here as well. I mean, so nothing change as part of the capabilities. It's just that it is an advanced engine.
Got it. Great. Thanks, Vasu. We are on time. It's just for the audience, couple of things. So our next webinar, which is on March 27th, a month from now, the topic is building multi-tenant SaaS applications on Azure. This will be another interesting webinar. So if you guys are interested, or if you want to share it with your colleagues, please visit your website on webinar section. You'll find the registrations, and also you will have the invites coming out in the next few days as well. Lastly, as Vasu mentioned, we've been working with several of our enterprise customers in migrating these P-SKUs to Fabric SKUs. Apart from some of these questions that we have, if you guys have any other questions, or if you would like to discuss on this a little bit more, please drop us a note at marketing@winwire.com, and we'll be more than happy to schedule the next level of discussion to take that forward. With that, again, I thank everyone for taking time to join this webinar, and I hope you found it informative and useful. Vasu, thanks for taking time to deliver this.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Thanks.
Thank you.